Reality, Chapter 3. I graduated in 2003. I was officially a graduate of Westdale High School. It's a big graduation, a lot of people. 3,000 students graduated. We are all in harmony, all sharing the same goal to make the lives of others great. Walked up on the outdoor stage to receive our diploma. Bam and I walked up together as if fate, as in other occasions, has purposely placed us in similar situations to deliberately expose the workings of itself, the hidden gears of time, the greater gears above time, placing time in its gears, making itself fate. Order follows all those that live without the order of time, according to Mr. Ward. In his own words, everything is possible, but remember, just because you are in does not mean you are in. There is always a bigger gear to be moved by. After graduation, there were refreshments, and for me, a strong sense of accomplishment. My mom and dad were there. As they told me how proud they were of me, I happened to notice Bam's dad talking to Bam about the brand new car sitting out in the parking lot. The one Bam's dad promised to get him if he graduated. I was happier for him than for me. I knew that he struggled to just do. For Bam, doing was hard enough, and finishing was more than his character. I had a lot of emotions to express, but I could not get my mouth to function. I had so much on my mind. Alice, the baby, my job, and adult future. I followed Bam out into the parking lot to see his new car. I could barely speak. I managed to say, "This nice car." All that was on my mind forbid me to be real. Alice was there with her child. She was happy for Bam. "Nice car, Bam," Alice said. She did not graduate with us. She had graduated the year prior, before we went to Florida together. After graduation, Alice and I went home with our 4-month-old child to put together the finishing touches on our day. In doing so, we laid Gabriel in her crib, and as the night approached, we got tired and went to bed. As we laid in bed, I quietly said, "Alice, while I was at Bam's the other day, he showed me a portal he had made." "I have a portal when I look at my child," she replied, without regard to the weird, absolute weirdness of either a portal or a lie of a portal. My own humility said, "A portal to what?" "Home," she replied. I could tell she knew something, but there was so much strange stuff happening, I did not think much of it. All I could do with the conversation is stuff it into my subconscious and hope for her grace to be intelligent. Honesty is the best policy. Hopefully through a fake okay I could heal my mind from the odd occurrences that took place. As Alice drifted off to sleep, I began to think. Work was going well. I held down the job for 9 months. The job pays $8 an hour. That was about $1,000 a month. Rent was about $600. There was not enough money. Most of the past 9 months we relied on our parents to pay the bills, and they had grown tired of supplying money. Flashes of memories from the past few weeks began to play in my mind. I could remember one day when Alice was out filling out applications. I could tell she knew very little about getting a job, but as life would, within a week she found one. It was at a pet store. Her job at the pet store was to feed the pets and clean the store. I remember how happy she was to find the pet store job. She enjoyed her job very much. Odd things about our daily lives roamed my thoughts. Where did the baby come from? How did Bam get a portal in his closet as a charged stone reality? I was still wondering if that worked. And why does everything go on as normal when nothing is normal? I try to talk to others about it, but I cannot find the words. I get bothered about reality, covering up what Alice claimed was the truth. Not only Alice, but I walked through the portal at Bam's house. We have all seen to know that what we think we see does not mean we actually see it. But everyday life goes on as normal. All the people carry on as if their truth is the only truth, and I'm left wondering, did the portal really happen? Was Alice and I, the parents of Gabriel? And who and what is trying hard to cover my eyes so that I cannot see what the apparent truth is? Maybe Bam is right. The light we see is ancient light. Because it expired, it appears to cover everything that would be new. But even if Bam was right, we still must fight against false and misleading light. That is why I must get back to Bam's house. I must go back to the portal. I must prove to myself that the light we see is no longer relevant for gravity. That it can be proved. After all, the creatures were nice to us, and I cannot forget the dream I had last night. If it was a dream, the creatures talked with me and told me about the baby Alice gave birth to was mine. that I gave it to her, that the child has the same blood type as me, it was produced by me. Maybe there is a reality out there, maybe it's within the city of Orion, a city where all knowledge is stale, but maybe not. In my mind, and all the confusion of what others have told me, I knew I needed Bam's portal. I need to prove the other reality, whether it be real or fake, the reality that makes you wonder but never proves itself strong enough to be. Suddenly I remembered Bam questioning Mr. Ward, and Mr. Ward responded with a stupid question. I knew that fantasy reality was not strong enough to be, but I must go. I did not want to go alone, so the next day I invited Max, Alice, Brendon, Bam, and Brenda to record the event. I needed documentation of when I walked through the portal and go into another dimension to prove our reality. All four showed up on time with their camcorders and recorders. As the moment came, I kissed Alice and told her I'd be back in 1 hour, or possibly now. I walk in, seeing that I was disobeying the structure of time. Hopefully I'll be back with some new information. Before I got to the tour, 2 men came out. They looked like astronauts, but their suits were red and blue instead of white. The sight of their big helmets startled us who were in the room. We all looked at the spacemen with awe, wondering what to say. Before we said anything, they said greetings in a mechanical voice. My friends and I said hi back. They started the conversation with the answers. We know why you want to walk through the portal, the spaceman said. We have come to give you answers. This portal that you're going to enter is a safe portal. On the other side of this portal is a safe place. As you have seen, life has changed for you over the past few years. Not only you, but the whole Earth. Your cell phones have gotten more developed, your computers have advanced, and you have seen and listened to strange things. All these things were meant to happen. The world on the other side of this portal is causing them to happen. We are what your world calls space travelers. We have come many light years from the environment you now live in. We can tell you that many years ago, during our travels, when we found Earth, that we had not expected, but found our old light source had taken on a life of their own. We were shocked. Our civilization, said the spaceman, began a long time ago. It began in deep space when we were small at that time, and we began to populate the universe, undercover obviously, and slowly we turned the universe into one big city. But in the process of taking over, we sent out energy. That energy was in the form of light waves. Because times are different under different suns, plus with time travel, some of the light, your present light, was under the power of things like time. That would mean time is above light in order of power. But that does not mean that time or fate has yet made our light, or rather the earth, part of itself. Once our city was finished, casually, we could not help notice our discharge of light, and that the light had become the earth. The other spaceman said, the earth is living in the past and we are from the future. In our time, we are from the future. I asked a question. You are from the future. Would you know what I'm about to say next? The spaceman said, the light in this room is controlling the environment, so no. But we know you're trying to walk through this portal. We also knew to send out the light while you were on the beach in 1999. The light that blinked a few times. At that time, we needed to give you a reason to find us so that your world would collide with ours. Alice asked, if you bring your world into ours, what happens to the light we see? The spaceman said, we have a purpose for the Earth. It has its own time. I will tell you more later. The first thing we need to do is show you the possibilities of Orion. We suddenly felt comfortable. Brendon, now relaxed, uttered, I am hungry. In a moment, in a flash of light, we noticed that the spacemen were holding bags of food that had previously not been there. We ran over to them and grabbed the bags. We could not believe our eyes. There were cookies, donuts, apples, and oranges. Once we picked what we wanted to eat, the spaceman said, we may not have known what you might have said next, but we knew you were hungry. How did you get the food so quickly, I asked. In the future, where we live, we simply send it to the past at proper wavelengths, the spaceman answered. Food is a wavelength, Bam asked, surprisingly. As we were eating, the spacemen thought it was their time to leave, but they said they would be back in a couple of days to bring us all inside the city. Immediately after they left, Brenda, with doubt in her voice, said, do you four believe them? No, we answered, but we're sure that what took place happened, although their surrounding light told us otherwise. It took a day before we considered the possibilities that the Earth had its own time, while creatures outside of that time had absolute reality. As we talked about it, Brendon said, "What could the Earth be for if it did have its own time?" "It would not surprise me if life were bigger," I said. "That's the point of the Earth, to explore the universe." Brenda disagreed. "The Earth is a fish tank of someone's doing, and these spacemen are trying to take over," she said. "They're not trying to take over," Alice said. "The reason I got a pregnancy test was because one of those spacemen showed up and told me to get one. With all my heart, I wanted to believe them. It was my dream come true, a baby." Together, after a couple days, we planned on going back to the portal. We wanted to be shown around the city. The day we planned on exploring the city was on a Monday. I called my boss at work and told him I was sick. Alice did likewise. As we approached Bam's bedroom, wondering if the spacemen would show up, Bam's bedroom door opened, and there stood the men with helmets. We said hi. "We want to ask you more about your world." They stretched their hands out towards us, and to our surprise, they handed Alice some money. The spaceman looked into Alice's blue eyes and said, "This money is for the baby. We know you cannot afford to take time off from work." She said, "I sort of do not believe you, or my friends do not. The environment that surrounds us does not believe us. Let us go through the portal, and you and your friends will see for yourself," the spaceman said. Brendon got fearful, concerned, and went back home. But Alice, Brenda, Max, Bam, and I decided we would finish up the journey. The spaceman gave us a couple of hours before everything would be ready and we could safely walk through the portal. As they left, they said we will return. We took a seat on the floor and decided we would wait in the same spot. As we were waiting, I said, "If this dimension does not know about the other, then we will still be in the same time once we get back." "That's probably how they could change the Earth," Alice added. Soon the spaceman came back and guided us through the portal. Once we got through, we were in a room. It looked sort of like a command station. There were lights and buttons everywhere. We noticed doors and hallways. The spaceman led us to one of the rooms. As I walked into the room, I noticed my anxieties left, and I felt that throughout my whole life I had been living a lie. I felt as if I belonged. The others felt it too. We all looked at each other with smiles on our faces. The man asked, "Do you feel better?" "Yes," we answered. I knew we were here for a reason, so I got quick to the point. I asked, "What's your world?" One of the spacemen opened his hand, and a small hologram appeared on his palm. I could see creatures and lands. He told us it was the beginning of this city. At the time within the hologram, there were a variety of creatures. When they discovered something like the quantum and started using it to expand to the other parts of the universe, as that planet was doing so, the other planets came together to build the universe. They used strong forces on a device called a space pad. With the space pad, they could make and control suns, build walls, or whatever else they needed. But one thing was neglectful, and that was using light. The missions they caused while building the city left pockets of rebellion. One of those places was the Earth. But they found a cure for the rebellion, to find a purpose for the untamed light. In fear and sensing the void of space, the idea present of never returning to the Earth, I decided to ask where we were in the universe, and where was the place that we were having this conversation. The men told us we were on a ship and we were flying through large channels of the city, and that at that moment we were going to one of the gardens within the city. In the meantime, the spaceman said, "We will show you around the ship." "Okay," we replied. As we were walking, I asked one of the men what governs the atoms. They explained that the city controls everything in the known universe, whether they took the atoms by force or bought them. "Force, you seem to be nice to be forceful," Alice said. "Only when necessary," they explained. "Could you rebuild my video game if needed?" The same video game, I asked, and they expressed a yes. We walked up and down the hallways. The light was dim. We noticed within the ship strange vegetation growing alongside the walls. The smell smelled like a frog or a snake, but there were lights and electronics everywhere, which gave us a sense of comfort. Within a few hours we arrived at our destination. Once we got off the ship, we walked towards gardens, pleasant gardens with stone paths. The air was heavy and I feared my surroundings. Everything expressed itself to be much greater. I feared to do wrong. I, through seeing, could tell that they had an answer, but the answer was a very real fear for play, for not breathing in the heavy air, for not making this part. There were creatures walking up and down the path. Everything was different than the earth. Even the atmosphere smelled different. Alice and I were a bit spooked, but Max and Bam seemed fine. As we walked along the path, exploring this new world, the spacemen started talking. They told us that most of the plants and creatures were created, like as if they were a programmable video game or computer. By whom, I asked. By our great ancestors, they replied. Bam asked who created them. It's a stupid question, one of the spacemen barked. Bam began to fear. The spacemen found that hard to answer because there was not an answer. They privately asked him, tried to explain time existent, but I found that hard to explain. They were trying to explain order to the surrounding environment. I did not get much, but that some creatures were greater and some were less. And if we lived previously without these things, these answers, then we were not going to find them here. That we should not use this experience to be stupid. After hours of walking, they wanted our help. They wanted our vote to give the city our power. I knew once I got home I would be a different person due to the past life, so I was not quick to give them anything. They explained to us that we could be part of the city, that we could live there, we could bring the city more alive, and we were an investment in the city. We were confused. Were they saying we had a job in the city, that everything is within some giant computer and our job is to program it? I almost considered giving my power right then, because I've always loved televisions, video games, cartoon, animation, etc., but I did not. After we walked through the gardens of Wall and saw wonderful things, the spacemen thought it was good for us to go back to the ship and explore other places. They decided to take us to the inner workings of the city. We were on a ship for what seemed like days before we arrived. As the ship approached, a golden city appeared through the windows of the command station. On close inspection it was a golden city. We quickly got out of the ship and started walking to the golden buildings, like a giant computer program. I asked the men what the words in the gold were. The blue spaceman looked at me and said ones and zeros and positive and negative. Apparently this answer must be universal, I thought. As we were talking, a creature came up to us. It looked like a gray alien, but it was not, because I've never seen a gray alien. But that's what I would expect if I saw one. Kind of looked like a soul or something. Whatever it was, it did not talk through its mouth, it talked through its mind, but then our brains started telling us things. I was nauseous as it came close. He continued insisting that life was sort of horrible while laughing at his smell. The smell of a long time in space, that miserable smell. Without it, I perhaps die, or can rest no longer, he would say jokingly while laughing, comforting us as we gazed upon his fearful appearance. The smell is my strength, was the last I heard as he turned down the hallway and was out of sight. The creature let me know that the nausea would not kill me, nor the fear written on his appearance. We decided to laugh along with him, with all respect. I feared nobody else heard him because he was sounding in my brain. I asked Bam if he heard him, and this I assured myself that he did. He sure loved the sickness and smell of a very exceptionally long time in his skin. He started telling us things about the gold and how the gold was made. He lived for a long time, much like the ancestors did. He finally stopped sending us messages, went back to work. We spent days walking in the Golden City, went up towers, through alleys, and met a lot of creatures along the way. Gold seemed to be a creature all on its own, and if it could be talked to, I was learning so much, it was hard to process. After we left the Golden City, the spaceman traveled back towards the portal in Bam's bedroom. I was tempted to live within the city hearing about all its goodness, but I had my doubts. What if this was an attempt to steal things from the Earth? What if they were wrong? The spaceman assured us that once we got back to the Earth, we would have plenty of time to think about everything. Before we arrived back home, the spaceman expressed that they would come back in a year. We said our goodbyes and walked through the portal and into Bam's bedroom. Once we got back, the time had not changed. It was still 3 o'clock. We were all tired and had felt like months since we left. We spent the next 3 days in Bam's apartment. Some slept on the couch, some slept on the floor. I slept on the chair. Within the 3 days, the ancient light crept back into our minds, and we were full of worry. We did not talk much about the journey for a while. All was covered up.